Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pro Tour Talk with Steve Dodge. I'm Steve Dodge. Today is March 28th, 2018, and today we are going to be joined by Dave Feldberg later in the show. We're going to talk a little bit about who Dave is as a person, why he is who he is, and we'll talk about the Pro Masters division and what we should do with it going forward. But before we get there, just wanted to let you know what we did at the last show worked really well, where after the show, like after we hit stop broadcast, I will go through all the comments. I'll filter out all of the good questions, and then I'll answer those in a separate segment, and we'll tack that on to the end of the podcast. So for those of you who listen to the podcast as opposed to the YouTube version, you get the bonus questions at the end of the show. We're on, I guess, anywhere you go to get podcasts, Stitcher, iTunes, maybe Snapchat. I don't know where podcasts live. Anyway, Spotify. Are we on Spotify? I think we are. So go there, and then you'll be able to listen to the questions, the answers to the questions that can pop up during the show. It was a pretty easy way to do it last week, and I'm just going to keep that format. So also, if during this show, so sometime in the next 45 minutes, if you purchase a compact Zuka cart, these things are starting to sell well. We're getting very close to the release date, which is early May. If you purchase a compact Zuka cart, we will send you one of our new soft DGPT tees, one of our new Pro Tour t-shirts. We got a new design. We got new colors. And you will get one, and you won't have it. And you just tell us what size you are when you place your compact Zuka order. And you won't have any idea what kind of shirt you're going to get, but you're going to get one. We will pick the design, we will pick the color, and you will wear it with pride and honor and glory, just like Braveheart or Rob Roy, which was not nearly as good. Anyway, so this week in Pro Tour news, the big thing was the fantasy wrap-up from the Waco. And if you would like an opportunity to win any of these big prizes, you should you should support us via Patreon. We thank our Patreons all the time, and they support us and help this thing go. I think the term is symbiotic. It might just be called bionic, but I think it's symbiotic. So anyway, Jeff Carson won our Patreon league. He picked James Conrad, Nate Sexton, Drew Gibson, and Garrett Gerthy. Good pickup with Garrett there on the men's side. And on the women's side, he picked Paige Pearson, Lisa Fakis, total of 1,207 points. And he walks away with a DGA mock shift. Well done, Jeff Carson. Stephen Rashawn, Chris Hayworth, Joseph Douglas, and Kevin Smed round out the top 5 on the Patreon side. Interestingly enough, Kevin Smed got 1,068 points. It might be Smed's. It might be a typo. He got 1,068 points. Jeff Carson got 1,207 points. So if you think you can beat 1,068, you have an opportunity to do well in Pro Tour Patreon Fantasy League. So you got to sign up for $5 a month, and then you get into every tournament. And as soon as you do $5 a month on Patreon, a special post shows up where that gives you the code on Skip Ace. On the Open League side, David Morse scored 1,222 points. He chose Conrad, Coling, Sexton, and Drew Gibson, and then Paige Pearson, Rebecca Cox on the women's side. He scored 1,222. Interestingly, though, he actually beat Jeff Carson, who got 1,207. He could have won a mock shift. Instead, he's going away with an Upper Park drawstring bag, Pro Tour drawstring bag. I'm not going to answer that right now. He goes away with a Upper Park drawstring bag, a very nice bag, but frankly, I'd rather have a mock shift. So, David, next time, put $5 in, and you just might walk away a big winner. Chris Morrissey, Travis Lamberton, Michael Kiefling, and a tie for 5th, Christy M. And who's the other person? I only see one name there. That's really interesting. It says there was a tie. Oh, broken on overall points. Oh, that's interesting. So Christy M, congratulations. So there you have it. Links to the Zuka cards if you want to buy one during the show and get yourself a free t-shirt, and links to the Patreon League and the fantasy news page that I just read are all in the YouTube description. So feel free to go there and follow those links. If you're listening in your car to the podcast, I'm sorry, it is too late. You do not get a free t-shirt for buying a Zuka, a compact Zuka, but you should still go buy a compact Zuka, support the tour, roll in style. So moving on, we have, UDisc stat of the week. This is something we're going to bring back from last year. And I did some quick research into the stat of the week. So the stat of the week is OB. Jeremy Colling tied Nate Perkins for the lead. Paul McBeth carded third. Paul McBeth was 3 strokes out, and he got himself 4 OB strokes over the course of the entire tournament. 54 holes, 4 OB strokes. Not too bad. For me, that would be fantastic. Jeremy Colling, he carded 5 OB strokes. He recovered very well. He played out of his mind, I guess, on the rest of the holes. The interesting thing is Nate Perkins. Through all 54 regulation holes, there are only 5 players, 5 total, out of the 100-plus players at Waco on the men's side, who got 0 OBs. Those guys are Jeff Rennard, Landon Knight, Mike Conley, Patrick Brown, and Nate Perkins. Nate Perkins went 0 OB strokes throughout 54 holes. And then in one sudden death hole, he swings it out wide, hits a spectator who is okay, and goes OB. A very interesting turn of events when you look at statistics. You would have bet there's no chance he's going OB on that shot if you had known the statistics. Actually, no, that's not true, because when push comes to shove, that guy who's never missed an extra point throughout the entire season, when the playoffs are on the line, obviously he's going to miss. But especially after Jim Buck, Troy Aikman, especially after one of those guys points out that stat, then it gets even worse. So anyway, that was a really interesting stat. No OB strokes for Nate Perkins through 54 holes, and then 1 OB stroke through 1 sudden death hole. So another adjustment we're making to the ever-evolving Super Chat trivia. And if we keep doing this throughout the season, this will be a very funny running joke. However, the Keen Super Chat trivia, we're modifying it again. And we're going to have the trivia question, but it'll just be for fun now. And what we're doing is every time you Super Chat, each dollar you Super Chat is 1 entry into our Super Chat trivia raffle. And if we get $75, we're going to raffle off a pair of Keens if there's just 1 Super Chat. If we get over $75 in Super Chats, we'll raffle off a second pair. And if we get over $150, we'll raffle off a third pair. So Super Chat, increase your odds of winning the Keen Super Chat raffle. And feel free to have some fun answering the trivia question, which will still be at hole 12. And then we will draw and announce the raffle winners the following Wednesday on this very show. So obviously next week, not this weekend, but the weekend after is Jonesboro Open. So in 2 shows, we will have our first drawing for our Keen Super Chat trivia raffle. Speaking of the Jonesboro Open, let's move on to the feature cards. We obviously do our fan votes the Monday, like 10 days before the event, and then we announce the feature cards the Wednesday, 2 days after the fan vote starts, which is today. So the winners of the fan vote on the men's side, Seppo Payu with he didn't win by a ton, but Seppo Payu with a total of 2,400 points, AJ Risley with 1,980 points, and Zach Melton with 1,790 points just squeaks out Garrett Gurthey. So the 3 MPO players that will be on feature cards are Seppo, AJ, and Zach. And actually, AJ Risley, I just saw on Facebook, actually, he has his own fan page on Facebook now. So if you like AJ Risley, look up Risley's Grizzlies and join that fan page for AJ Risley. Let's show him some love and keep rooting for him to do great. Obviously rooting for everybody to do great, but I thought it was pretty fun. I saw Risley's Grizzlies, which was mentioned a couple weeks ago actually on this podcast, and now that page exists. And on the women's side, this was a really exciting battle. I think it might be our second women's fan vote, but I'm going to say, first of all, Kelly Tucker got 5th place out of 5. And as far as I know, this is the first time she's ever been included in a fan vote. And there are now people that know Kelly Tucker's name. So this was a really good first step. I'm really happy to get Kelly Tucker's name known by even that many more people. Ellen Widboom is a name I suspect by the end of the season, many people will know. She got 4th in the fan voting, and she will be at, as far as I know, all of the Pro Tour events, and I guarantee she will be on a feature card at some point throughout the season. We got some nice video of her from the Waco that we might be posting later, but fantastic that she, just like Kelly, are on these lists. I'm very excited to see the number of women playing on the pro side starting to grow. Hopefully we can get some traction and keep this momentum going. Third on the women's side, Pixie Cannon. I did like one of the comments that said, I don't know Pixie, but with a name like Pixie Cannon, I had to vote for her. So Pixie Cannon with 1,400 points got 3rd. In 2nd place, just behind our winner, is Madison Walker. I imagine it was a very tough decision for a lot of people trying to choose which of these amazing women to see. And Madison, again, just like Pixie and Ellen, and hopefully Kelly, will be on a feature card sometime throughout the season. But the winner this week is Kona Panis. Congratulations, Kona. You will be on the women's feature card. And that is going to, let's go ahead and just wrap up who these feature card people, what the entire feature cards are. So the live card going off at I think it's 3 o'clock Eastern, is Ricky Wysocki, Kevin Jones, Simon Lizotte, and Seppo Payu. The noon feature card, which I believe will be, it'll be Jomez, but if he wants to do the 10 o'clock card, I will let him. Austin Hannum, Jeremy Colling, Kellen McCann, AJ Risley, and then the 10 o'clock feature card, Kai Visa, Danny Lindahl, Paul Macbeth, and Zach Melton. So those are our 3 men's feature cards, and the women's feature card that will be filmed by the disc golf guy, Terry Miller, Jennifer Allen, Jessica Weiss, Sarah Hokum, and Kona Panis. It'll be really exciting to see how that shapes up. So with that, going forward, we are going to be talking about in future episodes of Pro Tour Talk. We'll be talking about the playoffs specifically in Pro Tour events, but basically in premier events. What's the best way to handle playoffs? We'll be talking about weather. Is weather a concern? Is the PDGA weather policy the right solution for premier events? What's the best solution, and are there any tweaks that we should make to the weather policy? We'll have an open discussion about that as well. I'd love to have a conversation about what par is, what par should be, all the different ways that we can calculate par. Is it okay for us to be 15 down and around, or do we want to be 2 down and around? What's the goal of par? And a lot of people say it doesn't matter. I'm going to disagree with that. If it didn't matter, it wouldn't be such a hot topic. So it matters, and it's just a question of what are our goals with par and what's the best way to implement those goals. And those are topics we'll discuss in upcoming shows. If there's a topic that you want to see and a guest that you want to see, let me know in the comments. Shoot me an email, steven@dgpt.com. We'll do our best to address those questions and bring on those guests and learn more about the sport as we grow. So tonight after the break, we will be talking about Pro Masters and Pro Masters division with Dave Feldberg. Hey, there's Dave. As a matter of fact, just 1 second, Dave. I'll be right with you. We're going to talk about how we should think about Pro Masters, what we should do with Pro Masters, and all of that type of stuff. And we'll do that after the break. And with that, I am happy to welcome in Dave Feldberg to the show. Dave, it's nice to see you.
How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing great. Perfect timing as always.
Yeah, it was tricky that trying to get into Google Hangouts, but I figured it out.
You figured it out just in time, and I'm glad that you did. So, Dave, before we get into the Pro Masters conversation, I'd love to chat with you real quick and learn a little bit about who Dave Feldberg is. I know a couple years ago you were the man with the beard. Tonight, you are not the man with the beard. I want to know who Dave Feldberg was before the beard even started to grow.
I grew up in a small town and on a lake, and went to, just played sports like everybody else, and went to school, and then went to college after that, and that's where I kind of found disc golf. I was born in Washington, D.C. We moved to Michigan when I was 10.
Okay, born in Washington, D.C., moved to Michigan when you were 10. You said at the beginning you were from, and then it cut out. Where are you from, Michigan?
Yeah, after 10, we moved to Michigan. It was near Kalamazoo by Gull Lake, Delton area, and grew up on a lake. And after that, so I went from being like a city boy who was in the city all the time to a country boy with a town of 500 people. All the locals called us the city-fied folk.
So I was about to say, moving from a city to a lake, I suspect if you're anything like me, you had some significant adventures on and around that lake.
Yeah, that was to kind of save the childhood. My parents moved there because times were getting tough in Maryland, and also trying to raise kids through all those drug times and gang times and all that killings and stuff that was going on in the 80s and 90s there. So they tried to move us to a small town, and made friends there, and changed my whole life, really.
That's pretty interesting. How old are you? About 43?
41.
41.
I'm about to be 41. Not 41 until April 6th.
Okay. Well, I'll be 50 April 29th. So we're April boys. But it's interesting because I was going to college about the time that you were leaving the area, and I went to college in Fredericksburg, and down in Richmond at the time was the murder capital of the world, and DC was a close second. So that was a bad corridor at that time. You're 100% right.
Yeah, my parents feared they couldn't imagine what the next 10 years was going to bring. So.
Well, it turns out it brought a lot better. They turned things around, but anyway, I'm glad that they did. I know Richmond has actually turned into a beautiful city at this point, and they're doing a great job, and DC is DC.
Yeah.
So Dave, can you tell me one entertaining story that you had growing up, or even after you grew up? Like, give us something funny. Tell us something about who Dave Feldberg is in an entertaining little story.
Let's see who I am in an entertaining story. Looking back, I don't know. I think a kind of an entertaining story, maybe it's not exciting, is that my parents were always so busy and, going on. They owned a bar and they owned beauty shops, and they were, always going, that there'd be times where they would leave me behind.
You mean literally?
Literally, like, for example, we were at a Shell station once in town, and I went in, and when I came back out, my parents were gone. They had pumped the gas and left. They forgot me. Or, my dad would drop me off at school when there was no school that day, but he dropped me off so early, it'd be like 7 a.m. I was the first kid anyway, so I didn't know, and I'd be sitting there and not realize it till 9 a.m. So, those kind of things happen that, and they didn't mean it. Like, I remember from the Shell station, the lady knew my home phone number. I was only like 11, and she called and she said, "I think you left him here," and they came right
again.
So, I mean, that's the kind of things. It was kind of an interesting childhood.
So I don't know how deep we want to go. My mom was relatively forgetful at times, and I remember getting dropped off at Boy Scouts, and Boy Scouts didn't happen that night, and that was an entertaining experience. But it didn't happen that often. And I apologize, I have to ask this question. While you were growing up, was there a part of you that wondered what's wrong with my parents?
Yeah, I just thought that they were just always so obscure, busy with their own thoughts that they just would forget. Have someone around all the time. It's like you take things for granted. You just think I'm going to be in the back seat, but I hadn't gotten the back seat yet.
And the funny thing is, if it happens nowadays, that is the worst parent in the world.
Oh yeah, they go to jail, right?
Life is different. You're not allowed to be forgetful anymore. So, but you came through that, and do you laugh about it now with your parents?
Well, my parents, my dad went missing about 10 years ago when my mom was in a coma, and my mom is in a home right now. She came out of the coma. She was in it for 10 and a half months. She's been out for a few years now, and she has to have a nurse 24/7 in
right.
a place. So my mom, actually, when we went to see her, we went out to dinner, and she brought it up. She thinks it's one of the funniest stories, the one at the Shell station. She always remembers that. Of all the stories she can remember, that's one of the stories that sticks in her head too, is how she left me at a gas station.
So did you go swimming in the lake?
Yes. That's, me and Cynthia now live on a lake here in Georgia. That's one of the reasons we moved to the lake is, it's been 20 years since I got to live on a lake, and I always thought about it. And Cynthia said, "Where do you want to live?" I said, "Somewhere with water."
Yeah.
So, it's a dream come true. We're on the lake right now. We don't have a dock or a boat yet, but we're working that way. We just cut ourselves our first view of the lake because it's all woods.
Nice. How far away from the lake are you?
We're probably 200 feet from the lake, but we have 500 feet of waterfront.
Oh, wow.
But it's all woods. So
yeah.
We literally had to get a chainsaw. Her dad gave me a chainsaw for Christmas. I went out there and we made ourselves a view.
You cut yourself a fairway.
Yes. One fairway to the water.
Yes. So as a kid, I presume you went swimming, you went fishing,
swimming, fishing, tubing,
caught
water skiing. Yeah, if anything, collecting rocks. I mean, another story you're saying is my parents, we didn't have very much. So one way that they would take us on trips or, go to SeaWorld or Cedar Point once a summer was that we would pick up rocks off the beach, or we would pick out seaweed, and the neighbors would pay us like a penny a rock or $1 a bag of seaweed. And basically we would spend all day, me and my cousins, trying to collect up as much as we could. And, by the end, we'd have $62 to go to SeaWorld with each.
Wow. I assume your neighbors were just being polite.
No, well, it helped their beach, because think about it, now they had a smooth beach.
Oh, they were clearing the beach.
Yeah, we would swim under the water and pull all the rocks and all the seaweed all the way out to past their docks.
Absolutely. And seaweed is you don't like to walk in seaweed. So absolutely have your neighbor's kids clear it.
Yep. So we would clear it. And so that, that was the kind of things we would do. My family was big on going to like amusement parks once a year. We get to go to like Cedar Point. Yeah.
I was from Pittsburgh and we went to Cedar Point, I think every other year. Yeah. It was a little farther away. But yeah, Cedar Point, the roller coaster capital of the world. Everybody loves Cedar Point.
Yeah, Cynthia and I really got into riding roller coasters and stuff. But now after the neck surgery, I'm nervous to get on one. I'm not sure if I can ride. I'll
go ahead and say my roller coaster story, which I told 2 weeks ago. I think I was riding on a roller coaster doing a corkscrew. It might have been at Cedar Point with my dad. And as we're going through the corkscrew, my glasses fell off. And my dad reached out and caught my glasses in the corkscrew.
Wow.
It was ridiculous. Like there's no reason that I had glasses at the end of the trip.
You mean the actual blue corkscrew?
It might have been. Yeah. It was a corkscrew, and I believe it was at Cedar Point.
Yeah, that was really good. I took Cynthia on that ride a year or two ago, and it doesn't have the same feel as a kid after riding all the new ones they have.
Right.
But I remember the first time I did the demon drop and put the quarter on my knee, the whole 9 yards. That was enlightening at 10 years old.
I sing the demon drop song every once in a while, and Jenny looks at me like I'm ridiculous. Demon drop, demon drop, demon drop. That's a great ride.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So I think that's goofy enough to last us one show. But thank you very much for sharing that, and I hope your mom is happy with the way that your career has progressed and is proud of you as a son.
Yep, she just knows. She gets happy and she just says disc golf, and we give her discs and she always points to them on the wall and she's happy about it. So
cool. So Dave, you and I have had some actually probably more than just this one, but we've had quite a few conversations about. I'll just say in this specific case, in regard to the Masters division, and what should happen with the Masters division in an ideal world, and then in the world that we're in. I guess those are the two situations that we need to look at. As the sport continues to grow, I think this question will resolve itself because there will be enough money, so it won't matter as much. Right now, there's not that much money, and it's divvied up between Masters and the Open division. And at many tournaments, you could win Masters with a certain score and actually earn more money than if you played Open and got 7th or 8th or 9th, and with the same exact score. So my solution would be to simply pay the Masters less, so that never ever happens, and then they all come over to Open division naturally. What do you think of that idea?
Well, I mean, the reason that's not going to work, Steve, is because most of the promoters and the organizers are guys that are Masters age. And when you get to be your age, most people really have a respect for the older gentleman or older lady and their abilities. So I think that's what you'll see a lot of the tournaments, their buddy or their co-owner or their husband is playing in the Masters. And so telling him that, you worked all year for this tournament and to raise money, but we're not going to give anything to my, your personal group, usually doesn't fly. So I think that's kind of what's been keeping it from being spread over. And then there's also a lot of the Masters guys there are a lot of active Masters guys who are out there making sure the TDs are trying to spread it fairly and lobbying for certain amounts in our division. And, they've been working hard for years, like Jim Oates, for example.
Absolutely. And Jim is one of the guys that I talked to at the Memorial. So, and along with you, and let's go ahead and put forward two scenarios just to start with the where we are part of this conversation. The first scenario is let's say a regional B tier, and the Masters division and the people who are running the event are indeed thankful to the Masters age players. They're probably the guys. Some of them are probably the guys that come out and work on the course. They're guys that help spot when big tournaments come around. They're guys that help run the club. They give back significantly to the local club and that course and probably that tournament. And I can understand that your point 100% on an event like that. And I presume you can too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then most of those are being spread equally.
Yeah, they'd be like the payout would be spread proportionally based on how many people are in each division.
Yes, they're not saying the Open or the Masters has a reference or preference. It's just divide by the amount of players.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get to where I am, and granted, I'm one of those people who is older, but I still don't give myself any reverence. But I'm definitely older, and I still think the pro Masters players. I want to play with the Open guys. That's just how I roll. I've always wanted to compete against the very, very best, and if I can beat them, then I can walk home happy. And if I can't beat them, then that's okay. I'm not as good as they are, I suppose.
I guess though, Steve, it's tough to take though. I mean, if you look at the Memorial, I had the highest finish of anybody over 40. And I didn't have a great one round, so I finished 20th place. It was very close to top 10, just a couple shots. But, in the Masters division, he paid him $1,800 for first. That was better than third.
And how much did you get for 20th?
$580.
And how much would you have gotten in 2 strokes better?
800.
Oh, that's so not a significant jump.
No, because it was tight. It was 2 strokes would have put me in like 12th. There was a big tie. It wasn't until about 8th when you got 1,000.
Okay. So when we're talking about a Pro Tour event, and at a Pro Tour event, the MPO division, it's mandated that they have to add $10,500 to the MPO and FPO division, right. And we divvy up that added cash proportionally. But for the Pro Masters division, it's not mandated that you add anything at all. It would just be a PDGA A tier mandate, I suppose.
Yeah, I think they have to meet the PDGA minimums.
Yeah, exactly.
1,500 maybe.
I genuinely don't know. It's we eclipse it by so much I don't even worry about it.
Okay.
but whatever it is, I'm sure they do that. And it sounds like it first got 1,800. They do even more than that.
Yes. A lot
Right.
of your TDs that have this established Pro Tour events, not the ones you kind of brought up from a Jonesboro style event. I don't
Right.
consider that the style, but more like the memorial style events. They have a history and they're maintaining it and still meeting your minimum. They want to meet your minimum of 10, 5, but still maintain their history of all the other divisions and people that come to play their tournaments.
So, in your opinion, and I'll go ahead and just put my opinion out there, and then you can give it the old kibosh. In my opinion, in an ideal world, so I think we know where we are with a regional, and I think we kind of agree with that on a regional level. At the current Pro Tour level, we're kind of in this mixed state of flux, and we don't know quite which way to head. But in an ideal world, the place that I think that we should go, and I'm going to go ahead and say in 10 to 15 years, we'll be at this place. And that's where payouts are well over $100,000 per event. And it will be worthwhile for someone who has been a touring pro their whole lives. Talking about even Paul McBeth, Simon Lazat, Eagle McMahon, Seppo Payu, all of these guys who are on the younger side. In 20 years, they're going to be in their 40s, and start thinking about, it's hard to keep up with these young guns. That those guys need to be taken care of, in my opinion, and stay in the open division because they have a fan base. Phil Mickelson, actually, surprisingly, he's still doing great. But Phil Mickelson could easily be tapering off at this point. And even if he was, he would still have tons of people that love rooting for him. And so it's important that, in my opinion, it's important that he stays in the open division. And I think the same is going to happen in disc golf. So long term, it's important to me that these guys all stay in the open division. So that's where I want to head. Do you agree with the goal of where I want to head?
Yes, I agree with that goal, and I think that part of your goal should also be to promote the PDJ or whoever the powers to be in 20 years. That once they get to 50 plus, then there is something, maybe some kind of division for them. Maybe not at the Pro Tour events, but that there is like some other small tour for seniors. Because once you get over that level, then expecting them to compete with 19-year-olds, that's a little too much.
I'll agree. I'm 49 right now. I'll be 50 in a month, and I expect in about a month I'm going to start being sore. Right now I'm limber and ready to go. Put me in, coach. But in about a month, it's no. But you're 100% right. The wheels start to fall off. For me, it was probably mid to late 40s where the wheels. I realized, wow, I just don't have as much pop as I used to have. And and I'll agree. And I'll go ahead and say that in 15, it'll probably take 15 to 20 years where we have a critical mass of people that want to be watched. Now, we can obviously make a division for seniors, what I would call seniors 50 and up.
Yeah.
But I would like to make a seniors tour. But in order to do that, you need a critical mass. It's similar to the women's division right now. We are working on making a significant push for FPO, but we don't quite have a critical mass yet to make it go on its own. So, once we get that critical mass, I think the senior division for men would work out. And
plus, I think by the time you have the Jim Oates and those guys, they'll be 70 or 80 by then, and they'll have no jobs, and they'll be putting a lot of time and effort to writing things and making sure that there is that senior tour that they missed out
on. It's interesting because I could look at myself. I'll go ahead and include you in this because disc golf. In 10 years, when your wheels are falling off, disc golf's going to start to really take off, and you're going to look back and go, well, that sucks for me. And it's kind of the same for Jim Oates, and it's kind of the same for me. And I kind of wondered, does Terry Bradshaw think that? Does he look back and go, what are these guys? Like, I'm better than all these guys, and they're getting kabajillions. It's just
announcing jobs gets them.
Say that again?
That's why they make them announcers.
That's right. That's right. It makes it easier. But Sonny Jurgensen didn't do a great job of announcing, and I don't know what he's doing these days.
That was my favorite quarterback growing up, by the way.
Absolutely. He was my least favorite. I was a Cowboys fan.
I'm Skins fan, yeah.
It is what it is. So setting up the stage, in an ideal world, we'll get to a point where there's a critical mass of players above 50 and they can have a seniors tour. And if you're 45 and the wheels are starting to fall off, you can still compete, you can still make a living, you still have fans that love you, and you're able to make as good a living or better, actually a better living than a master's age player right now. I think that's also where we're headed. The question is, in this flux, how do we go from where we are now to where I and maybe we think we should be?
It's just like Climo always says. I love quoting Climo. He says, follow the yellow brick road. Don't reinvent the wheel. And there's tons of sports, including our sport in Japan, where they figured out a way to allow those people to compete with the younger men and women and still have a chance to be respected for being an elder. And I think that, I say Japan, I reference Japan, and I think that, I'm going to reference is what some people call it a double dip. But in most sports, what they do is once a player goes over the 35 or 40 age, depending on the sport, then they still compete with the youngsters, but there's a side pot or a side acclamation. Maybe it's just a trophy, but there's something that says, hey, you finished 11th in the open field, but you're also the best person over 40. So we're going to say, here's a trophy and an extra check and honor you at the ceremony for being the best player over 40, but you still also can collect your check for being 11th. And I did the math a little bit on that. And if you check the memorial, I would have broke even. It would have been the exact same if we had the same amount of players and we did, say, $50 out of your entry fee went to the side pot. And and you did that math, you paid the 40% down, I would have made the exact same amount as Rob Ryan did for Woody.
Did you? Oh, you didn't win Masters because you didn't play Masters.
Right.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So that's the most extreme Masters tournament we have for good payouts. So most tournaments, it would be much better for the Masters. With the ones that
to merge everybody.
Yeah. Yes.
And
so even at the upper level, Masters would only break even; they wouldn't lose out. And at the regular tournaments, regular that aren't the highest paying Masters tournaments in the world, which is like 2 or 3, then they would start to gain more money, and they would gain the ability to feel good about themselves. I mean, I've only played Masters for a year, Steve, and I can tell you the comments I hear from my competitors in the lead card is, man, there's nobody watching us. Oh man, who cares? The guy wins, beats me, and I'm shaking his hand. And he's like, nobody cares, right? There's not one person here to clap for me to win, and I'm winning a national tour or a big tournament. And I think that it doesn't affect me because I had a whole career of that. But for a lot of these guys, that they're missing that, and they're missing that drive. And I think that you see a lot of recycling through the Masters division. I've only been around a year, and I don't see the same guys at the tournaments over and over. And I think that there's just not any reward to be, to think you've won something but not be noticed to win it. And so if you have the skills, you want to be able to show people. And I think that, Jim Oates coming out and taking 17th in the Open, I think he'd have a lot more fun than winning the Grand Masters and nobody really knowing about it unless they see it in the box score.
Yeah, you said Grand Masters, so I assume he's over 50.
Yeah.
If he gets 17th in the Open division, that's a story. And we would put somebody on that card, take some pictures of him, and say, "Holy cow, you are showing 85, or actually at the Memorial, you're showing 150 guys that are younger than you how to play the game." And
that's a key point that you're saying, Steve, there, how to play the game, is that the other part that the other sports have is we have these older guys around so they can teach the younger guys how to be and act. Sure, it doesn't matter who you are. Most men, 20 to 40.
Time is now 8:40 in the library.
Most men that are 20 to 40 competing are going to be intense, and they're not. Sometimes they're going to be sportsmanship, but sometimes there's going to be moments where they aren't. But by the time they're over 40, they develop their life more. They're more comfortable in life, and they're probably going to be a lot more sportsmanlike, and they're going to know more about the rules and how to handle life. And having the chance to rub elbows with a 19 and 20-year-old kid and teach them that is how you grow the sport overall. And I don't think we've ever had that. As soon as guys became 35 when I was playing, they were gone. So the elder in my division was a 34-year-old man trying to make a living playing disc golf. He's probably not giving me the best example to be a sportsman. You know what I'm saying?
That is a side of, that's an argument that that you and I have never made head to head, but it's a really good point. Learning from experience is one of the best ways to learn. Making mistakes is the other great way. And being 50 and doing things the way I do, I've got a lot of both. So what I think I'm just to encapsulate all of this, are you proposing it might not work at the Memorial because that event, the MPO sells out. So, and then the Masters division is, I assume, pretty big as well. So that's kind of a special bear. But let's look at Waco. Waco, the MPO, I think they had 109 on the MPO side, and they had probably a dozen to probably 15 to 20 on the Masters side. And I think what you're saying is put those together. Yeah,
put them together. And do you have it up? What was the score? Do you have the computer in front of you?
I do have. I have a computer in front of me.
What is the Waco? Let's look at Waco. Does he cash?
Let's see if that works. I didn't do much here. There we go. We want to see
the winner of Master score.
I guess I need to do 2018, huh?
Yeah, it was just the other day.
You know what? When I'm looking for events on the PDGA page, I just search for the event in Google.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't go to the PDGA site. I go to Google and just type 2018 PDGA Waco.
I wish there was a way to sort their calendar by like state or something.
There's lots of things that can be improved everywhere. So let's look at the number one guy in Masters, Marcus Roberts. Big call out to Marcus Roberts. He shot 15 down, beat Michael Infante. I don't know how to pronounce that. My apologies. By 9 and Vinnie Miller by 14.
Okay.
Oh wait, that's the Pro Masters.
Yeah. So what did he get?
Oh, Chris Pepperling won Masters minus 19. He shot a 182.
Okay. Where does that put him?
Would have gotten him 29th, tying Dutch Napier. Dutch made $386 and Chris Pepperling made $578. So
you know that his $200 bonus would have been a lot more because how many players was there? 19, you said?
There were 19 Pro Masters, yeah.
Right. So his bonus, if you do like a $50 scale, like I was talking about, his bonus is looking to be about $600. I mean, 600 plus 383 is $900, and he got to play with the open players.
Exactly, and he would have got his 383. And the guy who got second place, Don Ellsworth, finished 14 down, got 350. He would have finished one shot out of the cash.
But maybe he wouldn't have because he wouldn't have. You know, when you're playing second in Masters,
that's right.
You're down by 5. You're just kind of goofing around.
Absolutely. Dave, did I turn off your camera or did you?
I don't know. It must have. Let me check it.
Okay.
It's having issues.
It's okay. I can keep myself on the screen. People probably like that better.
There we go.
There we go.
Is it working?
It is working. Yep.
Okay.
So let's pretend we're doing this side bet. I personally like the idea of just trophy only for Pro Masters, but I don't know how well that would fly. But presuming we did a side bet, would we be looking at? You said $50, so let's pretend it's $225 to get into an event. Are you saying 175 goes to the open pot and 50 goes to the Masters pot?
Right, kind of like when you did with the amateurs or some of the other women's stuff you did, you let people in for kind of a less entry, And I think that adding 175 to the pot will help them, and it provides more players and gets your headache of having all the best players in the same division. And
it also gives us a couple more stories because you've got a 40-year-old winner and a 50-year-old winner.
Exactly. And I think that if you get somebody to match the $50 or above that, it's up to the TD, but say the minimum is to match the $50. And it's not that much. If you look at, I did the math on the Memorial, it was about 4,000 added. I mean, that would be saying you had 80 players.
Yeah. So is the $50, does the MPO division, do the Masters aged players put in an extra $50 or is it just taken out of their entry going to the payout?
I think that should be an option for your man. I think that you should get the $50 taken out of your entry, but if you're over 50 and you want to double, triple dip, let's say, then you have to pay extra 50.
Okay, so just using Waco as an example, and we do not have the agreement of Ryan Draper and Joey Harrell on this, but we're going to pretend. So we've got 108 MPO players, we've got 20 Masters players, and we've got 10 or 12 senior Grandmasters or Grand.
And you said he shot 15 under. He would have cashed in last cash in Grandmasters. He would have won Grandmasters and got last cash in Open.
That's true, and yeah, you're absolutely right. Which would have been Marcus Roberts, great showing, Marcus. So, Marcus Roberts, he's 50 plus.
Right.
He puts in 225 to play in the tournament in the MPO division.
Yeah.
Does he put in another $50?
If he wants to be in the 40 and 50.
Oh,
he gets one selection for his 50.
So the 225, it gets divvied up. 175 goes to the event, 50 goes to the side pot. Right. And then if he wants to triple dip, he could do 50 for because he happens to be over 50 as well.
Right.
Okay.
A guy in Japan Open once got 8th place in the Open, 2nd place in the Masters, and 1st place in the Grandmasters.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And next year I get to do that too. Oh man, where was I headed? Rats.
So you were saying the extra pot, the extra 50.
So the extra 50. Oh, what I was saying was, what happens, like in the case of the Memorial, where the Open division fills with people that want to play Open and don't want to play Masters?
Well, someone like them could just choose to have an extra pool, and find a way to make it work. Most of the places could make it work. I know they're in trouble with the third course, but they need a third course anyway, which would open up a little more space to have a few more Open players for yourself and fill in the Masters like you need, because you could fill it. Why turn people away?
Because we're a Pro Tour event, we need to be exclusive.
I know, but if you can do 200 and he has the space. But in that case, I still think that you should promote people to do it and offer the side pot. And, they'll see if the TDs put no added cash into the Masters division and say, hey, no, we're going to put some of this or half this added cash into the Master side pot because we want to promote. We want to see Dan Ginley play against Paul Ulibarri. That's what we want to see.
Yeah, because he's going to have a good round.
Right. And so let's have that be the option. And I think, at first at the Memorial events, you'll have people that go both ways. But once they see that you're writing a story about Dan Ginley and Dan got double paid, they're going to be like, well, maybe I would have made $100 more or less, but it's not as fun. And the real truth of it is it's not about money. It's about having fun. And, if you can make these, most of these older guys they have jobs, families. They're not there to rake home rent. So if the experience is better, it's better. Most of the ones who don't care at all are playing the Open already just for the experience.
Right.
You got a lot of guys like Scott Reek who could, he could win the local Masters tournament and he could probably cash really high in Masters events. But when he goes to your events, he plays Open because he wants a chance to play with an Open player.
Right.
And he's not there for the payout.
So if this happened, I would propose that you get rid of the Pro Masters division. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Pro Masters division would go away. It would go into the Pro Open division, and then the Pro Masters players would automatically be entered $50 into a side pot, and the other money would go in. Now, the one caveat that I would put on, because 15 years down the road, none of this is going to apply. I think we need to recognize that we're on that road. And in my opinion, when this thing fills up with Open players who do not care about the side pot, then at that point, I would get rid of the side pot. And I would say, listen, I still appreciate you. I understand that you're older and your wheels are falling off, but the sport's moving on. Our pot is growing. So if you make the cut, you're still going to get paid a good amount, even though you're not playing in a Masters division.
I think you're onto that. Set maybe some kind of time limit, try for a year or 2 years and then see where you go. But I do think even when you make that switch, having like a little medal or something to give out just to the first place over 40 and 50, no payout would be a good, just to make it smooth out.
I think that's a great transition that should always stay.
Yeah. Like a little pin or something.
Yeah.
You can make a cool little pin or something.
Absolutely. It'll be cool.
Yeah.
And the way that I would do that, I would say that if there are more people on the wait list than there are Masters aged players in the tournament,
right,
then at that point, the next year we go away and we go to the pins.
Yeah. But for the 1 year, you still do it.
Yeah. You got to do it the last year, and you didn't get there yet. But once you get there, then you can transition away and you have your pins and okay. So
and then you have and then I hope the Masters guys don't hate me for this, but then you have your real goal, which is to have a male division and a female division, one division each to promote.
Right. And at the same time, you're building your critical mass for the seniors division.
Yeah.
And you're building names and people that people care about, because that's if nobody cares about the guy winning the Masters division, then yes, nobody's going to watch. But if we can build a critical mass and actually get a following for them, then people will care.
Right. And I think the other part of that is, and I hope a lot of guys don't take this personal, but we just didn't have a lot of touring pros who have stuck with the game long enough to be Masters players. We have a lot of Masters players who came in their 30s and maybe played pro and are good enough to be a Masters player. I mean, we do have our few, but even the Climos and, they kind of just, injuries take their course or they just don't play as much. I mean, we got Barry Schultz making the Surgeons, which is amazing. And he's, a great player, but he's rare, and I think by the time you're talking about, you're going to have a lot of, Paul McBeth and that age. I mean, they're in their late 20s now. Devin Owens, those kind of guys are be 41, 42, and they're going to need somewhere to go.
That's exactly right. And those guys are going to become the story in the future. And that it feels like that's a good transition to me. I think you've laid out a pretty good plan. I will tell you this, I'm going to put together I'm going to write something up based on what I think you've said. I'll run it by you, and then maybe we can publish it together on the under both of our names on the Pro Tour news feed and see how it flies, and maybe we can start to implement this next year.
Right, and I think we can. But Steve, one thing that we got to do is make sure that everybody out there knows that we show the examples of the numbers, because a lot of these guys are just going to jump, to saying that it doesn't make sense and why would they play and all this other stuff. You're going to have a lot of naysayers. But I think that in general, if your goal is to produce the best disc golf product for the public and get sponsors, then you're on the right path.
Dave, thank you very much for having this conversation with me. And thank you for sharing a little bit of your life and your 11-year-old experiences.
No problem, Steve. I appreciate you having me on the podcast. And those of you out there watching, as I always got to say, Next Generation Tour, register today. It's getting bigger and better.
The library will be
And thank you very much, Dave, and have a good night. And to all of our listeners, again, any questions that you have, put them in the comments. I'll answer them and then tack them on the end of the podcast. Thank you all for watching. Thank Dave Feldberg for being here. You guys have a great night. Throw them straight.
Good night.
Good night.